Hey guys, tonight we begin with the daily life of women in Spartacus's time. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. In a world dominated by men, war, and slavery, women often lived in the shadows, yet their lives were full of quiet endurance. They woke before sunrise, tended to families and households, worked the fields, and carried burdens both seen and unseen. They survived, they cared, and they shaped daily life in ways history rarely records. Tonight, we will step gently into their world, to understand their routines, their struggles, and their strength. This is the story of the silent survivors of Spartacus's time. As the sun began to lift itself over the hills, the world stirred quietly, and so did the women who lived within it. After hearing how these women carried the weight of survival in a harsh world, their mornings were the first act of resilience, shaping the rhythm of their day. Enslaved women, bound to the demands of masters, rose before anyone else, often in small, cramped quarters. They lit fires in smoky hearths, ground grain for bread, and fetched water from nearby wells or streams. Each movement was precise, practiced over years of repetition, yet every action carried the weight of responsibility. A delay could mean hunger or punishment. For free peasant women, the morning brought a slightly different set of challenges. They tended to animals, swept and cleaned their homes, and prepared simple meals for families who relied entirely on their effort. Even in these more autonomous households, life was a cycle of constant work, beginning at dawn and stretching until the light faded. Noble women, meanwhile, lived in more structured environments. Their mornings were filled with supervising servants, arranging clothing and meals, and ensuring the household ran smoothly. While they were spared the labor of lifting water or pounding grain, they carried the invisible weight of expectations, social propriety, and maintaining appearances. Yet across all ranks, mornings were also moments of quiet strength. Women used these early hours to plan their day, to gather themselves, and to prepare for what the sun would demand. Their work, their care, and their endurance began here, long before the world around them fully awoke. Through these first movements of the day, it becomes clear. Survival, in Spartacus' time, began at sunrise, and women were the steady hands keeping life in motion. After the first light of day had touched the world, women moved from the quiet of waking into the rhythm of labor. The morning was only the beginning. What followed were hours defined by the work of their hands, shaping the household and sustaining life. For enslaved women, the hearth was the center of existence. They stirred thick stews, baked flatbreads over hot stones, and scrubbed floors until every trace of dust was gone. Each task demanded precision and endurance. Laundry was done with ashes and cold water, clothes beaten and rubbed until clean. Spinning wool and weaving cloth filled the hours between chores, hands never idle, yet creating what families relied upon for warmth and protection. Free women of the peasant class balanced the household with similar determination, though with slightly more choice in how tasks were approached. They prepared meals, tended small gardens, and mended garments, often teaching children to help. Every stitch, every pot stirred, every chore completed, contributed to the survival of their families. Life was measured not in hours, but in tasks accomplished, each one a quiet assertion of strength and care. Even noble women were not untouched by household duties, though their work took a different form. Supervision, planning, and coordination became their daily tasks. They oversaw servants and slaves, ensured that food was prepared correctly, and that clothing and linens were maintained. Their hands guided the work of others, but their minds carried the weight of responsibility for the smooth running of the household. Through these daily acts, whether laboring directly or guiding others, women became the silent backbone of their communities. Every meal prepared, every garment mended, every floor scrubbed, was a thread in the tapestry of survival. In their hands rested the power to sustain life, to nurture family, and to endure in a world that demanded so much from them. As the day progressed from dawn into morning, Their work shifted seamlessly, moving from household chores into the fields, gardens, and workshops. These tasks formed the next phase of life, where labor intertwined with survival and resilience. Having seen how women sustained life within their homes, the day often led them outdoors, where labor expanded beyond the hearth. The hands that stirred pots and spun thread now touched soil, tending crops in gardens that fed families and communities alike. Peasant women rose early to carry water to plants, pull weeds, and gather vegetables. Their tunics, simple and durable, became streaked with soil, their feet hardened from long hours on uneven ground. Harvests depended on their diligence, whether collecting beans, cabbage, or grains. In the fields, time was measured in effort sowing, watering, and gathering, each task essential for survival. Each repetition, a quiet testament to endurance. For enslaved women, outdoor labor was often heavier and more grueling. They toiled under the watch of overseers, moving through large estates or plantations, tending fields that were not their own. The sun and wind left marks on their skin. Blisters and aches were daily companions. Yet even here, skill and experience allowed them to work efficiently, to preserve strength when possible, and sometimes to teach younger women the techniques of survival in silence. Noble women rarely entered the fields themselves, but their influence reached them indirectly. They coordinated planting schedules, organized harvest gatherings, and ensured that the work of peasants and slaves produced sufficient yield. Their day remained structured by oversight and expectation, but still tied intimately to the labor that fed the household. Work outside the home shaped not only the body but the rhythm of daily life. Women moved with a quiet resolve, balancing exhaustion with focus, and using these hours to reinforce bonds with others, sharing advice, encouragement, or even the occasional whispered comfort in the long day. In these open spaces, the women of Spartacus's era demonstrated resilience visible in every motion. Their hands cultivated life, and their endurance became a silent, steady force that allowed families and communities to survive. From the kitchen to the fields, each moment of labor carried a story of strength, patience, and quiet defiance. As the sun climbed higher, the day's work would return indoors, intertwining with cooking, childcare, and other tasks that demanded attention, revealing the unending rhythm that defined women's lives in this turbulent time. After long hours tending fields, homes, and hearths, the women's clothing often told a story more vivid than words could. Following the rhythm of labor, what they wore became both a shield against the elements and a quiet reflection of their place in the world. Peasant women favored tunics made from coarse wool or linen, practical garments that moved with the body. These were often long, reaching ankles to protect from brambles or dirt, and fastened with simple belts or strips of cloth. Colors were muted browns, grays, and earthy tones, shaped not by fashion, but by what could be dyed and what could endure repeated washing in cold streams. Even footwear was utilitarian. Simple sandals, or sometimes bare feet hardened by stones and soil. Each piece of clothing was a tool of survival. Enslaved women often had even fewer choices. Their garments were plain and worn, sometimes patched or frayed, yet they found ways to make them last. They stitched carefully, tied knots to adjust fit, and maintained every piece as best they could, knowing that clothing could offer both warmth and a thin layer of dignity in lives where freedom was absent. Noble women, by contrast, experienced the weight of expectation in every layer. Fine fabrics, silk, soft linen, or delicate wool were draped in flowing tunics and stolas, with cloaks or pallas adding elegance. Colors could be vibrant, dyes rare and expensive, and jewelry often accompanied attire. These garments were not only protective but symbolic, signaling wealth, status, and control over households and social life. Yet across every social stratum, clothing was more than mere fabric. It reflected work, endurance, and identity. A peasant woman's tunic bore the marks of labor. An enslaved woman's patchwork dress revealed adaptation and resilience. A noble woman's flowing stola carried the weight of societal expectation. Each outfit told the world who the wearer was, what she endured, and how she persisted through the day. As the sun moved westward, the day's labor faded, and women adjusted their garments for rest, care, or preparation for the evening. What they wore remained a silent testament to their survival, bridging the daily routines of work, family, and household, and quietly marking their presence in a world that often overlooked them. Having seen how clothing reflected a woman's daily life and labor, we move naturally into another essential part of survival: the preparation and sharing of food. For women in Spartacus' time, meals were more than nourishment. They were acts of care, resilience, and quiet authority within households. Peasant women began their day early, tending fires and grinding grains into flour for bread. This bread, often simple and coarse, was the staple of every meal. Stews simmered slowly over open flames, filled with vegetables from gardens, beans, cabbage, onions, and occasionally enriched with milk, eggs, or herbs when available. Cooking was not just sustenance, it was a careful orchestration to feed the family with what little the day provided. Enslaved women carried heavier responsibilities. In the homes of their masters, they prepared large quantities of food, measured carefully, stirred endlessly, and carried hot pots from kitchen to table. Even in these circumstances, small acts of ingenuity emerged: a pinch of seasoning, a careful loaf baked just right, allowing them to preserve dignity and skill under constant supervision. Noble women oversaw the work of others while ensuring their households remained well-fed. Their days involved directing cooks, tasting dishes, and planning meals for family and guests. Food became a tool of management, an expression of order, and sometimes a display of wealth and influence. Even their attention to what seemed small, arranging bread, checking wine, or selecting fruit, carried significance, demonstrating control over their environment and the people within it. Meals were also moments of quiet connection. Children gathered, family members exchanged words, and women briefly shared respite from the unending rhythm of labor. In every action, from stirring a pot to breaking bread, women nurtured both body and household, sustaining life in ways often invisible to history. Through these acts, it becomes clear that food was never simply about hunger. It was about survival, care, and endurance. Women shaped daily life with their hands and their hearts, ensuring that the rhythms of work, labor, and household needs moved forward, one meal at a time. After sustaining the household with meals, women's attention often turned to the next generation. The rhythms of daily life in Spartacus' time intertwined labor, survival, and the care of children. What women did for their families shaped not only immediate survival, but the skills, strength, and resilience of the future. Peasant women carried the responsibility of guiding young children through life. They taught them to tend gardens, care for animals, and help in household chores, passing down knowledge vital for survival. The mornings spent fetching water and grinding grain often included lessons for the little ones, and the evenings were filled with stories, quiet songs, and simple lessons about the world. Children were never idle, yet under a mother's hand, work became a form of learning, woven seamlessly into everyday life. Enslaved women faced added challenges. Alongside their own labor, they often cared for the children of their masters, ensuring they were fed, clothed, and attended to. Sometimes, they protected their own children in secret, teaching them skills and resilience in whispered instructions, careful to keep hope alive, even under watchful eyes. Their nurturing became an act of quiet defiance, a way to preserve life and spirit in a world that demanded obedience. Noble women, though less physically burdened, had responsibilities that shaped family and household alike. They oversaw the education of children, supervised tutors, and instilled social expectations. They guided daughters in skills such as weaving, household management, and etiquette, while sons learned from their fathers and mentors. Even in comfort, their care required vigilance and attention, as family reputation and survival were intertwined. Through these daily interactions, children absorbed lessons of endurance, responsibility, and survival. Women in every social class acted as both protectors and teachers, quietly molding the next generation. Their influence was often invisible to history, yet it was essential, shaping lives, households, and the very survival of communities in tumultuous time. As children rested in the afternoon, women often returned to their work, whether tending fields, preparing meals, or crafting garments. The cycles of care, labor, and instruction moved seamlessly, each action supporting the rhythm of life in the world of Spartacus. Having seen how women nurtured and guided the next generation, attention now turns to the spaces they called home. In Spartacus' time, a woman's day was deeply influenced by where she lived, the walls around her, the shelter overhead, and the safety those walls could provide. Peasant women often lived in simple mud brick or wattle and daub houses with thatched roofs. These small dwellings held entire families, so women worked to maintain order in limited space. They swept floors, repaired walls, and kept fires safely managed. Even in these humble homes, women found ways to create warmth and comfort, arranging areas for sleep, cooking, and chores, ensuring the household could function efficiently. Enslaved women faced much harsher conditions. They lived in cramped quarters, near fields, or within the estates of their masters. Privacy was scarce, and safety was fragile. Yet even here, they carved out small sanctuaries, keeping treasured possessions, mending clothes, or creating a quiet corner for rest. These tiny spaces became their refuge, a place to regroup and find strength amid constant labor and supervision. Noble women resided in larger villas, often with multiple rooms, courtyards, and servant quarters. While spared the heavy labor of daily survival, they bore responsibility for maintaining order, ensuring security, and managing the household staff. Their homes became centers of social and family life, and women moved gracefully through these spaces, overseeing servants, organizing tasks, and preparing for visitors or family gatherings. Across every social level, women shaped their surroundings. They ensured warmth, safety, and comfort where possible. They arranged sleeping areas, kept animals close but contained, and maintained fire for cooking and heat. The home was not just a shelter from the elements. It was a place where women protected family, nurtured children, and preserved dignity, even under harsh conditions. Through the rhythm of work and care, women's attention to shelter connected seamlessly to every part of daily life. Their hands and minds created spaces where survival, family, and quiet resilience could thrive, linking the morning's labor and midday routines to evenings of rest and reflection. After establishing safe spaces and caring for family, women in Spartacus' time often took on the role of healer. Their daily life intertwined survival and nurture, and tending to illness or injury was a task both practical and profound. Peasant women learned the knowledge of herbs and remedies, often passed down through generations. They prepared poultices for cuts, brewed teas for fevers, and used natural remedies to ease pain. When children fell ill, women were the first responders, watching through the night, soothing cries, and ensuring nourishment and comfort. Their skill was born from necessity, guiding families through sickness in a world with little formal medicine. Enslaved women carried this responsibility both for themselves and for others. They tended wounds, soothed aches, and sometimes assisted with childbirth, all while managing the labor of their daily tasks. Their care was quiet, yet critical. Small acts of attention could mean the difference between survival and suffering. In the shadows of oppression, healing became a subtle but powerful form of agency. Noble women also played significant roles in health management, though in different ways. They oversaw the care of children, staff, and sometimes the wider household. They might prepare remedies, manage baths, or guide servants in administering care. Even surrounded by privilege, women held the responsibility of ensuring well-being, understanding that health and order were inseparable in daily life. Across every household, women acted as the backbone of health. Their hands nurtured, their knowledge protected, and their attentiveness saved lives. Illness could not halt the rhythm of work and care, but women adapted, blending labor, protection, and comfort into a seamless practice of daily survival. By evening, after meals were shared and children rested, women often took a quiet moment for themselves, checking remedies, planning for the next day, and reflecting on the care they had provided. Their role as caretaker extended far beyond the visible, connecting the threads of labor, family, and survival into a daily tapestry of resilience and endurance. After a day spent tending to labor, family, and health, women in Spartacus' time often turned to spiritual practices that grounded daily life. Faith and rituals were quietly interwoven into routines, offering solace, guidance, and a sense of order in a world that could be harsh and unpredictable. Peasant women carried simple customs from their ancestors. They would leave small offerings of food or grain near household shrines, whisper prayers for protection, or murmur blessings over meals and children. These small acts created continuity and reassurance, helping families feel connected to forces greater than themselves, even amid hardship. Enslaved women often preserved their faith privately, blending household tasks with personal rituals. In cramped quarters or hidden corners, they would light a small flame, offer prayers for safety, and call upon gods or spirits for the health of loved ones. These practices provided not only comfort, but a subtle assertion of autonomy, a quiet way to nurture hope where control over life was limited. Noble women engaged in rituals that were both private and public. They oversaw household sacrifices, honored gods with offerings, and participated in festivals or ceremonies. Their daily prayers and rituals reinforced status and ensured that social and spiritual order were maintained. Yet at the heart of these actions was the same thread seen across all women's lives: a need to nurture, protect, and find meaning in daily existence. Faith also guided decisions and interactions. Women consulted rituals before planting crops, tending animals, or even preparing meals, integrating belief into practical life. In these small acts, religion and spirituality became inseparable from survival, work, and care. By dusk, as the household settled and the sun's glow softened, women often reflected quietly on these practices. Faith was not only a comfort, it was a companion to endurance, a steadying force in the daily rhythm of labor, caregiving, and resilience. Having explored women's spiritual lives, it is important to understand how they navigated relationships with men, both in households and in the wider society. For women in Spartacus's time, daily life was shaped not only by labor and care, but also by subtle negotiations of authority, respect, and survival. Peasant women often worked alongside men in fields and workshops, balancing cooperation and competition. Husbands, fathers, and brothers shared labor. But women held responsibilities that were uniquely theirs: childcare, household management, and guidance of younger family members. These interactions required diplomacy, patience, and a quiet strength, as women maintained influence within households while respecting social norms. Enslaved women faced a far more precarious position. Their interactions with male slaves, overseers, and masters were often governed by necessity and survival. Obedience was essential. Yet within these constraints, women found ways to exercise small measures of agency through skill, knowledge of the household, or quiet resistance. Relationships could be tense, fleeting, or fraught, but women learned to navigate them with care, preserving their safety while protecting family and self. Noble women, while enjoying more authority in the household, still operated within a male-dominated world. Their husbands or fathers determined alliances, land management, and social standing. Yet noble women shaped the environment around them, managing servants, influencing children, and hosting gatherings that cemented status. Their influence, though often indirect, was both significant and strategic, demonstrating that power could be subtle and negotiated rather than overt. Across all classes, women's social interactions reflected an ongoing balancing act. They managed respect, care, and authority with skill, often using wit, patience, and knowledge to navigate a world where men's decisions could shape their lives. Every gesture, every word, every carefully considered action contributed to household stability and survival. By evening, after labor, meals, and spiritual practices, women would reflect on these interactions, sometimes with pride, sometimes with quiet concern, but always with resilience. Their ability to maintain equilibrium in both family and society was another thread in the complex tapestry of their daily life. After a long day filled with labor, childcare, and household responsibilities, women in Spartacus' time welcomed the quiet of evening. The work did not vanish, but the pace slowed, offering moments to rest, reflect, and tend to smaller comforts that sustained both body and spirit. Peasant women often gathered around the hearth once more, finishing small tasks, mending clothes, storing food, or sweeping floors one last time. As night fell, they shared simple meals with family, exchanged stories, and soothed children to sleep. Even in modest homes, these small acts created warmth, reassurance, and a sense of order, helping everyone prepare for the next day. Enslaved women, after enduring long hours of work both outdoors and indoors, sometimes found stolen moments for themselves. A quiet corner, a whispered prayer, or a brief conversation with a trusted companion provided small but vital relief. Even under surveillance, these women preserved dignity through tiny rituals, folding a cloth neatly, arranging a few personal belongings, or humming softly while finishing the day's chores. Noble women, though freed from physical labor, had their own evening routines. They oversaw household tidiness, reviewed plans for the next day, and occasionally entertained family or visitors. Yet even for them, evening was a moment to pause, reflect, and nurture the home with gentle oversight, ensuring comfort and continuity within the family and household. Across all social levels, evenings became a time of quiet strength. Women nurtured not only those around them, but also themselves, weaving moments of care, reflection, and calm into the daily rhythm. It was in these subtle pauses, after meals were served and children were asleep, that resilience took root, preparing them to face the labor, challenges, and responsibilities of tomorrow. Through these calm hours, one can see the enduring rhythm of women's lives: work, care, nurture, and reflection. A cycle that quietly yet powerfully sustained households and communities in the world of Spartacus. Having seen how women ended their days with rest and quiet reflection, it's important to recognize that much of their skill and labor extended beyond the immediate household. Women in Spartacus' time carried knowledge and expertise that was essential to survival, and sometimes contributed to broader community life. Peasant women often engaged in crafts alongside domestic duties. They spun wool into yarn, wove cloth, and mended garments, producing the very materials that clothed their families. They made baskets, ropes, and simple tools, blending creativity with necessity. These skills were practical, yet honed over years, a quiet art passed from mother to daughter, ensuring survival through both knowledge and labor. Enslaved women sometimes applied these skills for the benefit of their masters, crafting garments, repairing tools, or preparing goods for trade. Even under restriction, they maintained pride in their work, adapting techniques, teaching others, and finding small ways to assert mastery over their craft. These tasks, though often undervalued, were vital threads in the survival of both household and individual. Noble women also engaged in management of skills, though in a supervisory and organizational capacity. They directed servants in textile production, food preparation, and household maintenance. Through careful oversight, they ensured efficiency, quality, and sustainability, blending authority with practical knowledge. Across all social levels, these skills were intertwined with identity, resilience, and daily survival. They were not merely tasks to complete, they represented continuity, independence, and quiet strength. Women's hands shaped both the tangible and intangible aspects of life: clothing, tools, and domestic order, as well as the knowledge, patience, and perseverance needed to sustain households through difficult times. As dusk faded into night, these skills often continued, subtly mending garments by candlelight, preparing for the next day, or teaching younger family members the techniques that had ensured survival for generations. In every stitch, knot, and careful motion, women's lives were written into the fabric of daily life, a testament to endurance, expertise, and quiet mastery. After a day filled with labor, caregiving, and household responsibilities, women in Spartacus' time sought moments of rest and enjoyment. Even in challenging circumstances, these quiet joys provided balance, connection, and a gentle reprieve from the constant demands of daily life. Peasant women often found entertainment in simple, shared activities: singing while working, telling stories by the hearth, or teaching children games helped ease the weight of labor. Music and storytelling were not only sources of amusement, but also tools for passing down traditions, values, and wisdom. Even brief laughter or a well-told tale could lift spirits and create bonds between family and community. Enslaved women created their own spaces for respite whenever possible. In fleeting moments, they would share whispered jokes, weave small decorations, or hum quietly while completing chores. These small acts were acts of resilience, tiny sparks of joy that preserved hope and strengthened bonds among women in difficult circumstances. Noble women also embraced entertainment and leisure, though often in structured settings. They might host gatherings, engage in music or poetry, or enjoy personal hobbies like weaving fine fabrics or crafting jewelry. These moments provided mental stimulation, social interaction, and a reprieve from supervisory responsibilities. Even in privilege, leisure was carefully interwoven with obligations, reflecting the balance women maintained between care, work, and personal fulfillment. Across all social classes, leisure reinforced connection and well-being. Whether through song, story, or shared laughter, women carved out time to nourish their spirits. These moments allowed them to recharge, reflect, and preserve resilience, essential qualities for navigating the demands of everyday life in a world defined by labor, responsibility, and survival. As night deepened, these small joys lingered quietly, wrapping the household in calm and preparing everyone for the coming day. Through leisure, women not only nurtured themselves but also strengthened the rhythms of life around them, proving that even in hardship, comfort and connection could flourish. Having explored moments of rest and quiet joy, it's essential to see how women engaged beyond the home. In Spartacus's time, women often participated in markets and community life, shaping the social and economic pulse around them. Peasant women brought goods from their households to local markets, baskets of vegetables, handmade textiles, or small crafted items. These trips were more than commerce. They were opportunities for exchange, storytelling, and building connections. Women negotiated, bartered, and shared news, creating networks that strengthened both survival and community bonds. Enslaved women, when permitted, sometimes assisted in market activities, carrying goods, assisting merchants, or producing items for trade. Even under constraint, these interactions offered small measures of autonomy, social contact, and a sense of purpose beyond labor in their households. Their presence in these spaces demonstrated resilience, resourcefulness, and the subtle ways women contributed to the economic life of their surroundings. Noble women influenced trade in different ways. They might oversee the production of goods, arrange sales of surplus crops, or maintain connections with local artisans and merchants. Their management extended beyond their homes, shaping the local economy, supporting households, and ensuring the smooth circulation of essential resources. Across all levels, engagement with the market and community connected women to the broader world. Through skill, negotiation, and interaction, they influenced both economic and social life, creating networks of trust and support that were essential for survival. Women's participation was not just practical, it was an expression of agency, intelligence, and quiet power in everyday life. Evening would often follow market visits with preparation for the next day. But these excursions left a subtle imprint, a sense of accomplishment, connection, and contribution that resonated throughout households and communities. Having explored the many facets of daily life, from nurturing children and managing homes, to healing, crafting, and participating in markets, it becomes clear that women in Spartacus' time carried a quiet but formidable strength. Their lives were not defined solely by hardship, but by endurance, care, and the subtle power of persistence. Peasant women preserved traditions, skills, and knowledge that sustained families through labor, illness, and scarcity. Their influence was felt in every meal prepared, every child guided, and every garment mended. They were custodians of daily life, ensuring continuity and resilience for generations. Enslaved women demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and quiet courage. Even under strict control, they nurtured children, cared for others, and maintained personal dignity. Their acts of resilience, small yet persistent, protected hope, fostered skill, and preserved humanity in conditions that could so easily strip it away. Their survival itself was an enduring statement of strength. Noble women, while navigating the expectations of status and authority, balanced household management, education of children, and social obligations. Their careful oversight, strategic planning, and attention to both family and staff created households that thrived, leaving a legacy of stability, wisdom, and influence that reached beyond their walls. Across all levels, women's lives were a testament to endurance. Each day, from dawn to dusk, their hands shaped households, communities, and futures. Their care, skill, and resilience were woven into the fabric of society, often invisible to history, yet indispensable. As night falls over fields, villas, and villages alike, the quiet strength of these women remains a reminder that survival is not only about endurance, but about nurturing life, teaching wisdom, and maintaining dignity, even in the harshest circumstances. Their legacy lives on in the subtle unspoken lessons passed from generation to generation. Courage, resilience, and the enduring power of women's hands and hearts.